Freedom fighters, I'm coming back at you with another one. I'm back already. So soon. I said I was quitting the game, or I'm thinking about quitting the game. I was thinking about getting out while the getting is good. But I got nothing for this. But it was never about, getting anything. It was about, changing minds and trying to form and mold a society and a country, a place that, I wanted to live in, that you and I want to live in, or already have lived in, or do live in, to conserve a society that you live in. And for those of us who call ourselves conservatives, um, but yeah, a life that you were already accustomed to, a pre 9/11 world at the very least, right? It was still corrupted. We were still a controlled slave colony at that point, but I guess ignorance was bliss. People didn't think about it much then, and I guess the terms were acceptable. I wanted to do a future video on that. You know, the social contract, I guess is what it's called. Stay tuned for that. That'll be a future video. Again, if you're new here, like, share, subscribe, follow me on X. I do videos on Rumble as well. I'm on Truth Social, all the stuff, the things. But people are blowing their lids on this whole Alex Preety thing with the ICE incident. So I want to, stay tuned to this whole Minneapolis, Minnesota saga that continues to go on. And, there's a lot of controversy there and infighting and stuff like that. And I was responding to a comment someone said, something about, now I changed up and now I support the boot or something to that effect. And I was saying I'm not necessarily, taking the government side or the cop side or whatever you want to call it for sure. But I referenced a video I did a while back, and I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was covering a case where these New York illegal immigrants, obviously when it was Mayor Adams was taking in, millions of illegals, and it's a sanctuary state or city, and they're bringing all these guys in, and they beat a cop, I think over the head with like a club or a baseball bat or something like that. And I can't remember exactly what happened, if the cop died or whatnot. I remember they perp walked the illegal, and he flicked off the camera or something, or was smiling or something like that. And I can't remember the whole thing, but at the day, what I was saying was, either way, I don't care. The both hate me, right? And what I was saying was, if the illegals beat the cop over the head, killed the cop, no love lost, right? No tears shed for a New York City tyrant. These same officers would, protect these illegals and then would arrest me for carrying or exercising your God given rights. I have no love lost for these tyrants. It's not like I'm on their side. But at the same time, if they were to get tough and turn the angle and actually go after these illegals, I wouldn't be for stopping it. I would be like, and I referred to it in that video as taking out the trash, right? And either way it goes, um, I'm happy with the end result. Both hate me, neither are on my side. It's the same way when, I was having a conversation with a Jew, and I've talked to Muslims about the whole Israel Palestine debate or conversation or whatever. And depending on who you're talking to, I can kind of switch the argument in the other direction. And they'll, like, if you're talking to a Jewish person, they'll be like, okay, you're on my side, like you understand the Muslims are savages, and they can't be reasoned with, or we can't have a cohesive society together and all this stuff. And I'll be like, I can place the argument that way, sure. But at the same time, I'm like, you're not my friend either. They think like, okay, so you're on our side. No, I'm on either side. And if I've talked to a Muslim person, the same thing. They're like, "Oh, you understand, like you're awake to the issue that, the Jewish people have orchestrated this, and throughout the media they make it seem a certain way, and they're doing that." And I'm like, "Sure, I can play both sides of the argument." And I realize neither are on my side, right? Neither want us to have our country, a Christian nationalist America. Neither want that, and both are counterintuitive to that lifestyle and that country. So anyway, back to the Alex Peretti thing. Um, you know, he was a enemy combatant, and he was taking marching orders directly, basically from government officials. Um, we talked about this whole um group chat thing where um they had Minnesota officials in there and everything. They're giving people orders, they're grouped up, they have people doing license plate readers, they got people finding out where the ICE agents are, all this stuff. They are the military, they are the enforcement branch of the left. And all of a sudden people have started, taking these people's sides. And same thing with Renee Good, and they were all in this group chat taking orders. And Republic cucks for some reason have taken their side. And I've never wavered. People are like, "Oh, you don't believe in their rights now and that." I've always fought for everyone's rights. And I have a long record for that. You can look at that where I defended NFAC. And we were talking about them the other day, in Black Panther Party for having firearms. And in no way am I saying Alex didn't have a right to protest um, or have his firearm. And for the Republicans, who are talking about, oh, his guns and all that, I'm not making that argument at all. He actually absolutely had reason to carry firearms. And let me just make that crystal clear, because people for some reason were thinking that I was saying um, otherwise. But then, I saw this savage meme the other day too that said, ICE did a pretty good job spelling it like Alex Preddy, and then they were taking Renee Good's name, and I couldn't find it, so then I ended up making my own and posting that, and people were like, "Oh, it's too soon," and oh, it's internet culture, man. Like it's edgy, pushy memes or whatnot, and like I said, I'm not glad that they died or whatnot. I'm just understanding what this is, right? We're in a civil war, and again, people just they're not ready for that. And then after, they're like, oh, wait, I was thinking after Charlie Kirk, I could give a fuck less, right? Like I'm done with these people. I'm done trying to make peace with the left. I'm done trying to do that. That's what my previous video to this whole Minnesota thing was like, I'm done. We're in a civil war. Let's stop acting like, like I said for over and over again. Every time a president gets elected or a new mayor or a governor, they're always like, oh, let's heal. Let's come together. It's never going to happen. Like, if you're still in this mindset of that happening, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man, but um it's like, conserva cucks don't have the stomach for it, man. They don't know what's gonna have to be done, and they just can't handle it. And lately I've been realizing it's like they're the ones who need the safe spaces, right? It's like the left needs to be coddled, and they need their quiet time in the corner if someone says a different gender or talks anything other than woke rainbows and butterflies universe that they're living in. But you talk to Republicans again about hardline issues and basically telling them what's going down, and they just they go nuts and they can't handle it either. So it's like a whole country of fucking softies, man. And I just don't get it. But if you want to wake up in the morning and send your kid off to school and not know that they're transitioning your kid behind your back, and your daughter's softball team has a dude on it, and that they're not going to take your guns, and they wouldn't even dream of it in my society. Like if I was the ruler or whatever, the governor or the president, you know they wouldn't even dream of it. They would be held, it would be codified in law, and it already is, right? It's in the Constitution. That's what I've always said about when these, even when Republicans get in office, like Ron DeSantis, I've talked about that. And then he says, oh no, we're a constitutional or carrier, or they have to put it into law. It's already law. All you have to do, if I was in there, I'd be like, it's all, everything's an infringement. And if you infringe on someone's Second Amendment right, it's in the, I forget the exact code of the Bill of Rights or whatnot, but enforcing, in the color of law and depriving someone of their civil rights is, it's punishable by death. You have committed the top level crime of violating someone's rights, and it seems that the right doesn't want that, right? They don't want to win, and it's because of the optics. I've done a video on that too, about the right. They do this. Trump's already backing down because he's like, oh, that didn't look good. And again, the right doesn't even have the stomach for it. And I posted this one. I can't remember who I was responding to. I think it was a Matt Walsh tweet, but he's like, oh yeah, you thought, oh yeah, to deport millions of people, that they opened up the border, that it was just gonna be they were just gonna be like, oh okay, yeah. And to stop, all this woke clown world bullshit that we've been dealing with the genders and, the kids in your school's bathroom and all this stuff. You thought to end it was just going to be bringing someone in the White House or electing your local official or whatever it is. They're never gonna stop until they get their way. And eventually, I don't know when it's gonna be, whenever we get the balls and we actually nut up and put an end to it. But until then, this whole you think you're gonna write a petition or write your congressman and that's gonna stop it. It ain't gonna do it. And the left is so much better at advertising their position, or um I don't know how to say it, like marketing their stuff. I mean, Trump did a pretty good job at like labeling people, making funny little nicknames, pencil neck shift, and like little Marco Rubio and stuff, which now he's all butt buddies with. But these names, Crooked Hillary and stuff like that, they stick, right? But the left uses the media and drills its position into people's brains, and you never stop hearing about it. In the last video, I talked about how that terrorist Muslim drove to the Capitol and executed military members in the streets, and I didn't remember their names. And it's because it just blows over when it happens to us, right? And how many people are still pushing on the Charlie Kirk thing? How many people? I mean, Charlie Kirk is a huge figure, so we're always going to remember his name. But you know what I mean by the left is like, George Floyd, um, Breonna Taylor, and all these people, and the Michael Brown, the say his name, hands up, don't shoot. Even as a right wing person, I know these names and know their chants because they say it over and over and over again and drill it into your head. And you see it every protest, and the media is covering it, and they're pushing it and pushing it. And we don't do that to ours. All right. And that's kind of the video I was saying. I did that video. They'll kill you and no one will even care because our side, and I know that, right? Like when I eventually die by a tyrant's bullet, fighting for freedom, no one's going to be rioting for me. No one's going to be protesting and say his name and, all this stuff, making statues and, um, all this stuff. And talking about that, I was responding to someone else. Again, the right came to Illhan Omar's defense the other day when she was giving her speech and she got sprayed by vinegar or something. I heard they never really found out what it was. Some people said it was bacon grease or something. And again, Republicans are coming to her side and saying, oh, this should never happen and they need to be held to the highest extent of the law, and attack on politicians aren't necessary. I said, man, I wouldn't shed a tear if she was shot. If that guy would have shot her, and I'm not calling for that. The disclaimer: no violence. I do not endorse. I'm not intending to encourage or support any illegal or unlawful actions. I'm just saying if that were to happen, in my opinion, I did the previous video. Do you know what time it is? Do you know where we're at in this country? So yeah, now even the Republicans are, coming to Ilhan Omar's defense after all the, stuff against her that's been happening. And, there used to be a time of day or back in the day where, tarring, feathering was a thing, little stuff like that. Um, Spraying someone with like silly string or something. I think someone threw or put a pie in Bill Gates' face. Um, George Bush had a shoe thrown at him. Again, not that I'm encouraging that or, inciting that or anything like that, but, these little things, man, I don't even care. And now that's even too much for Republicans, right? And then, she's just garnering sympathy and stuff like that. And, because she's trying to, gain more reputation and support, within her district and the state. And this is a showdown, right? And I expect to see from, something similar from Tim Walz. I was expecting that before Illhan Omar. Right now he's like, people are driving by my house and calling me a retard. So, I was expecting one of these days someone's going to come by and, like, throw red paint at his gate or do something like that, throw something at him, while he's out there, throw eggs at him, and he's going to be like, I'm under attack because of the Trump administration. And, meanwhile, conservatives are literally getting shot at. And talking about getting shot at, I saw, Ted Nugent here making some controversial posts again. I think I talked about that already, but I wasn't sure if I mentioned that whole event or whatnot. But it's either, you're either rich enough to get away from this bullshit is kind of a angle I wanted to take. I've talked before about the rich and, how they can avoid this, and you're in a favorable environment away from the reality of the consequences that these people make, right? And then, this is the other thing I wanted to talk about. was hick libs. And if you don't know what that is, that's a term for like liberals out in the country. And I've talked about that before too, about, you know, I have family, way out in the country, and then I have lots of friends, out in pretty rural areas. And when you go out there, man, I was surprised. I went out there not too long ago, and, you were seeing the same signs, the sign that's no person is illegal, and, we love all, and then it had the rainbow flag. It's like all is accepted and all this stuff. And I'm like out here. I went back way back when one time I was visiting some family, and during the elections, and I saw Bernie signs like out in the boonies, and I was like, holy crap. And whatchamacallit, you even have you have all these people out there, and this one guy in Minnesota or whatever they're calling the like Antifa farmer or something. And I've been telling people for a while, especially with the farmers. I used to go to these country farmer markets and try to get some vegetables and produce from people out in the country, and you get to talking about stuff, and you think, right, you talk openly because you think everyone out there is like on your side, and you find a lot of them are very liberal. And I talked about that before, and a lot of these farmers and these people you think are on your side are on government contracts, and they're socialists, and they are communists, and that's exactly what they are. And they've you know they're I guess the opposite of what I am, where they're fighting behind enemy lines, but the country people don't even realize, like, they're out there. And that's another thing I think I've seen. People were like, oh, freedom fighter, you're being too extreme, or people don't understand it. And it's like, because you don't live behind enemy lines, right? And I talk to a lot of my friends, some of my family. I don't really talk to my family much about that, but the ones who are out there, I'm like, you don't have to deal with this. You don't see, what goes on. So the people who are living behind enemy lines, I'm telling you, man, and people always say this, you got what you voted for, and they think everybody in New York's a liberal, right? Everybody in Chicago's a liberal. And they're like, well, they're getting what they voted for. And I'm like, man, I know there are some hardcore patriots behind those lines, some hardcore freedom fighters, and they are just getting shit on 24/7. And no one's coming to save them, and no one cares about them. Even their fellow man, right? Their fellow freedom fighters, but the ones hanging out that are in the country, and they just totally go, oh, well, you're going to have to deal with it. And that's why I guess we get, so extreme, because we're like, bro, when you're dealing with these people and you're dealing with blue hair and pink hairs all day long, and they're correcting you on gender pronouns and all this, crazy garbage, you're just sick and tired of it. And really, like I said, like in my like kind of libertarianish mind, where I used to just let stuff fly, and I'm like, let live and let live, right? But then they don't let me live, right? They don't let me do my way. They're, oh, we have to ban this. You can't have that. You can't go there with one of those. And then I'm like, yo, I'm just trying to live, right? And then they say, oh, no, and then they basically say, hey, we're going to get the police to come kill you. So who am I supporting here, right? That's what I said. The left ain't on my side. I sure as hell ain't backing the blue either, because they ain't on my side either. But I got this post here from Cernovich as well, and he was talking about the Virginia elections or something, and he was talking, or maybe it was about Minnesota, that we dodged Tim Walz, or he was saying what you're seeing in Virginia now is what we dodged with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and it would have happened nationwide. And I responded to that, and I've said before in a lot of videos, it'd be better off nationwide, because when you have those states and you have like Minnesota is about conquered, like it's almost over. And when you have localities like that get taken over, like I said, you've probably got some hardcore freedom fighters and patriots behind enemy lines, going to work every day, watching Antifa riots, watching all these people, you know, attack vehicles and all this stuff, and you just have to deal with it. And your views are not taken seriously or listened to. You can't even espouse your ideas, or else you're going to get, marked and attacked, because you're literally behind enemy lines. And if it happened on a nationwide level, like I always say, like they take the guns in New York, they take them in Chicago, they take them in Cali, and they take them, wherever these communists get a foothold and take place. And then now it's going on in Virginia. And then people are like, I saw a tweet from what's her name, Dylan, Harmeet Dylan, saying that, oh, these laws won't stand, it's unconstitutional. Well, they're standing in New York, they're standing in Chicago and Hawaii and all these other liberal places. You guys never do anything about it. And even when they go up to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court rules, the liberals just ignore it anyway. They do it anyway. And there's never any repercussions, for violating the Second Amendment. And I've got tweets here too from, what's this? Jason Mayares, the former AG. And he's talking about, all these policies are going to get people killed. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. And you got this guy, Saddam Salam Aleikum Malaka, from India. And he's out there trying to pass gun control laws. And he's like, oh, well, they don't have these guns. It's banned over where I'm from. Well, okay, that's where you're from. And that's not how we do it here. So you haven't assimilated. You haven't become an American. And you are going against not only the state constitution, but the federal, the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the United States. And, it cannot be allowed to stand. These traitors, can't be allowed to take office and do this stuff. But we don't have serious Republicans, right? You got your Lindsey Grahams and, all these fakes, and they're all fake. And then you had Glenn Youngkin, who succeeded this state, who handed it over. He's out here posting stuff, and it looks like he's going to try to make a run in 28. And it's like, dude, what did you do? Right? This whole flannel country club Republican, this look they all try to put on and, act like they're, one of you. And it's like, dude, you had the chance to crush these people while you were in office, and all you did was, work on fiscal policy and, whatever your conservative things you could say you were doing, but it never really fixed anything, and you just handed it over. I saw this news report here from this guy, Joey, on Fox News, saying he's a two-way absolutist. He was talking about the Minnesota event, the Alex Preety event, and he goes, oh yeah, I'm a two-way absolutist, but, this guy was carrying out a protest you're not allowed to do, and, he did this or that or what. Now, I don't even know, man, but it's like, this is your Fox News cuck publican. And I think this guy's also a vet. I think this guy's in a wheelchair or something. Or I think he got his legs blown off. If this is the guy I'm thinking about, I can't remember. But again, it's this whole like, oh, the vets are for your rights, and the vets are out there fighting. And like, I saw this other post about, I can't even remember who it was about, Grantham or like one of these big gun tuber vet bro people. and they were like, yeah, you know, we need to come into the community or something as veterans and all this stuff. And I'm like, bro, it ain't happening. It just ain't happening. And I've talked about the Tim Kennedy types and, you know, all these people. They're not going to do anything. They've already allowed it all to happen. I've talked about it over and over. This whole, oh, I took an oath and, you know, all this. They've already crossed the red line. And it's like, where are these people? Nobody's doing nothing. Not even the people in office. You have Trump once again letting down the Second Amendment, talking about, oh, you know, same thing. Oh, he went into a protest. Oh, he had 2 loaded magazines. I've talked about this how all the time. Whenever they do news reports of, you know, they arrest somebody or they, um, you know, raid someone's house, and then they're like, oh, he had 500 rounds of ammo. And it's like, bro, that's like one bulk pack. Like, that's a minimum to go to like the range one day. And they try to make it seem like, you know, he had some arsenal and like how much damage he was going to do. And that's what Trump said. Oh, that's some serious damage, 2 magazines. Oh, you know, he came there to do, you know, whatnot, and you can't do that. You have Trump's DOJ and all this stuff coming out saying that they're against FRT triggers and, you know, banning all this stuff. And I keep getting NRA messages and GOA telling me about, oh, this law's passing and that's passing. What happened to the Pro-A administration? You know, these people do not support us. Don't get it twisted. They believe in gun control, and freedom ain't coming by the ballot. That's what I always say. They are not gonna let you live free, and the sheep out there will choose that peaceful slavery over dangerous freedom, and they're betting on that. They're betting on your neighbors and your coworkers and everyone around you being a docile, soft sheep who accepts the tyranny. And last but least, I'm getting long here. It's another long-winded rant, but oh yeah, this is just great. You got Obama, Biden, and Clinton all giving us a lesson on tyranny. They're talking about the Alex Peretti event that happened, and they're all saying, you know, what a sad day in our country, and, you know, what administration does this and all that. And they've all killed citizens, right? Obama literally drone striked an American citizen. You know, all throughout their administrations, they've had police, you know, raids and stuff like that on the behalf of theirs, both foreign and domestic. And they've, you know, had casualties of war and citizens that were not the main target and all this stuff. But again, they use everything towards their advantage so much better than the Republicans do. And by their laws that they try to put forth, gun laws, I've talked about it before, those are literally orders to kill, right? Gun control saying, oh, no, you can't have this, you can't have that, is literally saying, well, if you choose to have it, you know, you're in an exercise your God-given 2A rights that they don't have the ability to take away, well, then we're going to send guys to come kill you. So that's what it is, man. Until the next one, you know what it is. We are on our own. Nobody's coming to save us. So get right with God, because only God can save you. Freedom fighters out.